Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Law and Finance Show. And today we have another great conversation. And if you're a lawyer and you're trying to take your law firm to the next level, or, maybe you're a new partner or you're at a senior level within a law firm, one of the areas that you have to start getting a decent framework around is the marketing side of the law firm, because we're living in a world where things are drastically changing. The way that you get in front of your prospective clients and your prospective customers, it is changing a bit. And so what you need is a decent framework or some things that you should consider on how to do that better. And today, our guest Zeke Silvani is going to be on, and we're going to be talking about that. So stay tuned for today's episode. So without further ado, let me bring on Zeke. Welcome to the show, Zeke. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am doing very well, doing very well. So one of the things that I always like to start off with, what part of the country are you in?
I'm in Miami right now. Yep.
Miami. Okay, so you're feeling well. You're probably feeling more of the heat wave than I am.
It's super hot. I'm just looking outside right now. Super hot in the summer. It rains a ton, tropical environment. So it hasn't rained in a while, but now it's pouring. But it's good. Yeah, I used to live in DC and in San Francisco before that. So this is definitely different in almost every way.
Gotcha. So what took you to Miami?
Legal marketing, actually. So, it's a long, convoluted story, but basically, I used to work at Google, worked on AdWords, launched the AdWords app there, and left, went to go work at Capital One, did some product stuff, created some credit card products, some software products. So really had no experience in legal at all, but I did have a deep experience in both marketing and like product design, basically. And through a series of events, I was connected with some people who acquired a legal marketing company, an agency, who asked me to come help grow it, basically. So I took that step. That was about 3 years ago or so. So moved the family down to Miami, enjoying the beach, enjoying the work, and never look back.
Nice, nice. I love it. I love it. So, I mean, you gave us a little bit of context about kind of your background from, like, say, starting in Google AdWords and, and kind of just progressing from there and how you got to where you are now. I guess before, starting with Google AdWords, was like marketing was that the area you were focused on going into, or how did that kind of play out for you?
Starting how early? What do you mean? So I've always been interested in business in general, right? I was a finance major back in undergrad, did an MBA in entrepreneurship and marketing and strategy, stuff like that. That was out in California. I was in Berkeley, so that's kind of why I ended up in the tech world. But yeah, I've always been interested in business in general. And marketing, people misunderstand marketing a lot. They think of marketing as just advertising, but it's really not. It's critical to the business. It's critical to sales, right? How you position the company or the brand or all that has a direct impact on revenue, right? And if you don't have revenue, obviously you're not going to have much of a business. But that's why I started in focusing more on marketing and on kind of product strategy and combining those two things as a way to help the sales teams be more effective in selling more product. And that's true. Like, you can apply that regardless of the industry or the company. Maybe some people think, "Oh, I'm a lawyer, I'm a law firm, I don't need to worry about branding or anything like that," but it's not true at all. And even if you don't think yourself or look at yourself as a salesperson, or don't have sales staff, right, in your law firm, you're selling every day, right? Every time you're trying to retain a new client, you're selling, and you need to position yourself in the best way possible to make that job easier, because selling is hard. And most people don't like to sell.
Gotcha. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Now, one of the things I'm interested in is, you said you started off in finance and like said, you traveled down, professionally, continue traveling down this, marketing product kind of this set, like the business side of it. Like,
Yep.
do you feel like starting off in finance gave you a different perspective from some of your other fellow marketers?
That's a good question. Maybe. It gave me a great perspective. So I was working as a hedge fund analyst, basically, right? So it was more like it wasn't corporate finance; it was capital markets. So that gave me a great perspective on more macro issues and just understanding how things were connected to each other. But it also, I think the more important lesson that it taught me was that I did not want to do finance, and the reason why, because I did that for 5 years or so. Um, because I wasn't really like building anything, you know. I wasn't creating products. I was creating value, but not from scratch, I guess, and not for the right outcome. I don't know. I don't really want to get into all that, but what I learned that I loved was I started a little startup on the side, and just the process of building something, of creating something, of adding value to consumers, really like I don't know, it set a little bug off in me. And I was like, I want to do this for the rest of my life, whether it's as a product manager directly or through marketing or through sales. Just the act of creating something, and specifically a business, was really, really attractive to me.
Awesome. It's always great to hear when, like I said, and people are kind of how they navigated that process of figuring out what it is that they want to do. And I
Yeah.
think just being okay saying that, hey, where I started isn't where I want to stay. And just kind of navigating that journey for where it goes.
It's trial by error, right? How else are you going to learn?
Hmm. Awesome, awesome. Now, so as you kind of navigated that path, like you said, you kind of left finance because you wanted to do something different. And then so can you tell us a little bit more about kind of when you came into Google AdWords, like how early was that into like the Google AdWord, life cycle or
For Google, I mean?
yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't very early. So it was in 2014, right? So it was already very established. Obviously a ton has changed since then, but one of the things that they didn't have was a mobile app. So even though the product had been around for probably 10 years or so at that point, they did not have a mobile app. And so I was on the team that created that app. And me specifically, I was in charge of marketing and launching it, right? So, from scratch, work with, the beta testers, figured out, uh, first of all, why an app would be necessary or what they would want it for, and then craft all the marketing and the positioning kind of as a, downstream from what we've learned. And Google was a cool place because it was very iterative. They're very open to just launching quickly, making mistakes as a way to figure out. I mean, like I said a second ago, trial and error, right? Just navigating the market by just making as many tweaks as you can, and learning from your feedback loop. So it's really important to be connected to the end consumer. And most of the time that's through sales, right? So you go talk to your sales reps. I'm sitting literally, like across the hall from a room full of sales reps. And I'll go there, several times a day and just ask them, what are you hearing, right? What's the market saying? And all that super, super valuable information. So that was really fun. I did a couple other projects in AdWords, but that was I guess the most impactful, the most fun.
Gotcha, gotcha. No, I guess how was that experience? I mean, you're kind of from a person who's not in marketing, and you hear someone say like, you were on the marketing team for a marketing tool.
Yep.
So it's just like, was it like I guess, did you find that there were things about like as you were marketing kind of like the mobile app or just kind of getting people familiar with that? Did you find that people were receptive to what you guys were saying, or were they, did it take some time of education before they started grasping like, hey, this is a great shift in where the product is going?
Yeah. So I have a problem with with people saying, and I'm not saying that you're saying this right now, but just in general, the philosophy of saying, oh, we need to educate the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're assuming that like you're right and they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the famous quote or saying that everybody misinterprets, which is the customer's always right. That's not about like customer service or anything like that. Like, hey, I want, give me a free lasagna because there was a hair in it or whatever. What that actually means is if nobody's buying your product or if they're telling you that they don't want it, they're right, right? Like the masses are right. And you can't like educate them or convince them otherwise through like gimmicky advertising or anything like that, right? So you need to build your product to satisfy their real needs, and it has to solve a real problem, right? That's kind of the whole customer's always right thing. So tying this back to the AdWords app, it was interesting because so at first everybody hated it, right? And this is before it actually launched. This is in private beta, and I forget how many people were using it, but assume I don't know something like 1,000 people were testing it and rating it and everything. So it was in the Play Store, and it had something like 2 stars, 2 out of 5 stars, right? And when we would talk to people, they would say, yeah, I can't actually manage my campaigns through this thing. It's very bare bones. And we as a product team, we're not going to add a bunch of features to it because that would take a long time and be really expensive, and we wanted to launch quickly. So I listened, and I made one tweak to the positioning, which changed everything. And that was, instead of telling people that you could manage your campaigns on the go, that was kind of the tagline. We changed it to, you can stay on top of your campaigns on the go. So that shifted the mindset of saying, instead of, hey, you're going to use this as an AdWords tool that you can, edit your campaign strategies and do really in-depth work, because it's a complicated tool, right? Google AdWords is really complicated. Shifted it to saying, hey, download this app and you'll get notifications if anything goes wrong. We'll send you messages for opportunities or anything like that you can just keep. So it'll be there in your back pocket, literally, to keep your campaigns kind of top of mind, and just make sure that if something screws up, you will know, right? So you can go away for the day and have that peace of mind. And so once we just changed literally just the copy in the Play Store description to, instead of manage your campaigns on the go, we changed it to stay on top of your campaigns on the go. I think that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
The perception of what it did was very, or what it should be able to do was very different. And the ratings went from 2.4 or something like that to 4.8, literally just after making that change. So in my mind, it's less about, to answer your question directly, less about educating the market as to why you're great versus understanding what these people need and then positioning and building your product to satisfy that need.
Absolutely. I love that perspective because, for me, one of the things that was a newer concept for me, because my background is accounting and finance, was positioning. And I think like maybe several years ago, I read a book by Jack Trout and Al Reese called Positioning. I mean, very old school book. But it introduced me to that concept of positioning. And it is one of those things that I like the way that you emphasize that of, it wasn't so much the education, but just positioning it right so clients knew that it actually met their needs. Now, I understand the word positioning, but I guess for a lot of lawyers who may be listening, like positioning may not be a term that they're kind of familiar with. Can you kind of share your perspective on like what positioning means?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's like a textbook definition, and I forget exactly what it is, but the gist of it is essentially describing what you do and what problem you solve compared to, or positioned against, I guess, other substitutes. So that could be your direct competitors, or it could be, like a substitute, or just doing nothing at all, right? But basically the gist of it is, why should somebody pay attention to what you're saying, and what problem can you solve for them, right? That's kind of how you're positioning yourself in the market. I don't know if that's clear or not. I haven't really taught any of this stuff before, so most of it is just kind of concepts in my head. But I don't know. That's how I would describe it. Have you heard differently? Like how would you describe it?
Yeah, I mean, the way I've heard it is kind of the way you explained it. It is, what problem are you solving? Like, who do you solve it for? And why does your solution, why is your solution, relevant or better to solve that problem?
Right.
And I think it's one of those things that it really, though, I think another way I've heard someone saying is just like, hey, if people think of in their mind, like about their problem, like where does your solution sit in like the sphere related to their problem? And it's just like figuring out like what angle do you want them to understand your product in, and just how do you get that message out?
Yep. Yep. And so just to get tactical, like if you're a lawyer and let's say you're a criminal defense lawyer, right? You can lean into different aspects of things. If you want to position yourself as the affordable guy, like, okay, great. You can lean to that. And that's where you're going to advertise, your price points and stuff like that. If you want to or position yourself as, let's say, for example, you're a former prosecutor, right? You can lean into that and you can position yourself as, the very well connected, well respected best guy out there, because you need to have proof points, right? You can't just like position yourself as something and just because you say it, it's true. You need to back it up with, some proof points and facts. And I think that might be a good place to start if you're curious about, how you should position yourself or your firm. Look at, your assets or your facts or the proof points that people think are valuable about you, and then kind of work your way up and ladder up and say, okay, cool, I guess I am the XYZ attorney, right? And then just heavily lean into that, and if it keeps working, build more and more momentum around that positioning and around what you're actually saying to attract people to you.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. It's almost amazing when you see people that do get very comfortable with understanding who they are, and and kind of what problem they really solve, and like what identity they bring to that. So I want to talk a little bit more about converted marketing, and just kind of when you came to to this part of your
Yep.
your professional life journey, what really stood out to you about like, hey, this is the thing that I think I should invest my time and energy in.
Yep. Uh, well, I mean, that's a long story, but the team here is awesome. The technology is awesome. And the solution that we provide, I strongly feel is the best in the industry and one of the few that like actually works. And what I mean by actually works, like obviously, a lot of people have technology or advertising platforms that like work, um,
Mhm.
functionally, I guess. But at the end of the day, so here's how we think about small law firms. Most of them don't want to focus their time on marketing or on sales, right? Or on things like positioning and stuff like this. Like, they didn't go and spend a bunch of years, working in marketing or going to business school or anything like that. We have, and we've perfected this thing. And so the way that we position ourselves is we will just do all that for you in a way that's very predictable and reliable and also affordable, because we built this for like the smallest solo firms. That's one of our design principles. Like it needs to be affordable enough for the smallest solo attorney to go out and buy this and get a solid ROI. Um, when you start there and have that hard constraint, it makes it very valuable and very effective. So, I mean, we have some of the biggest firms in the country using us, but because we started, or we still, like the vast majority of our clients are solo attorneys, we like have to be ruthlessly efficient in how we build and how we price and everything. So I saw, this company and what they're capable of doing. I was like, wow, we can take this to the next level. So things like, websites for attorney or PPC campaigns like Google Ads for attorneys, right? Really, really complicated stuff. But we will just like, I'll spend 10 minutes with an attorney, sign them up, and just with that information that you give me over, 10 minutes, I'll be able to set up your marketing campaigns, your website. Even, we'll answer phones for people. So when leads come in, we have a whole like sales script basically to turn a prospect or a lead into a consultation and eventually a client. And that's all we care about. I don't care about any of those middle metrics like, you know, they are important, but for ConvertIT to think about, but not for the attorney, for things like cost per click, click-through rates, all this stuff that like, it doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters is, and again, you have to think about it in the attorney's shoes, how much are you paying ConvertIT and how much are you getting out of it, right? And if that math isn't at least, what we aim for and what our average is like a 3 times return on that investment, then we consider ourselves as failing. Even if the cost per click is super low or the conversion rate super high, it doesn't matter, right? Are we getting you high quality clients every single month for the budget that you're giving us? And if the answer is yes, fantastic. And it usually is yes, right? So that's why once a lawyer signs on, they stay on with us for years, which is awesome. And if it's no, we'll figure out what to do. And sometimes the answer candidly is, hey, your market's really, really hard, or it's really expensive. So, I'm sorry, we can't do anything for you. That rarely happens. We can usually figure it out, but we're not going to sit around and waste our clients' money if we don't think we could actually get them a return.
Mm-hmm. I really like that approach because every time when I talk with, lawyers, and I've probably done, some financial controls or just kind of helping them set up some things from an accounting standpoint for their firm. Like I've probably met with 37 lawyers in the past year. And one of the questions that comes up a lot of times where they're talking about, marketing, or like, oh, I'm going to hire this, this marketing contractor, or hire this person, this marketing specialist. And one of the questions I always ask myself is like, do you even understand enough about marketing to manage that person? Like maybe you need to look at a different solution, because if you don't know what you're doing, how are you going to manage them?
Totally. And one of the things, that's like the build versus buy decision in a way, like, do I do it internally or do I outsource? And the question is like, do you want to build a marketing department? Most people don't. For us, right? Like accounting is a great example. We don't have an internal accounting staff. We outsource that. We have like an outsourced controller, and it's great. It works fantastic, and you just don't have to think about it. So we aim to be kind of your marketing partner in a way, where you don't have to worry about it. Set aside whatever the $1,000 a month, and you'll just know that it's going to perform, right? Or $500 or whatever it may be that you want to spend, without having to manage people. We won't sit around and ask for like strategy sessions with you every 2 weeks or anything like that. Like we don't need any of that because our platform just works and our clients love it because they're just like, all right, great. I don't have to think about this. I just know that I'm going to get clients every month. And I don't really care how it works. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That I think that's the great point, because I've talked to a couple of lawyers, and like when I ask them, just kind of like, what are you doing on like, your conversions, like your sales process? And they'll say, oh, I need to sit on this marketing strategy meeting. And I always like think in the back of my mind, like, what good are you going to be in that meeting? Like, do you like, how are you going to add value to that meeting? Like, you probably would be better at serving your clients than you would be sitting in a marketing meeting that you don't know much about.
Yeah. Lean into your strengths, right? And that's fine. Like not everybody can be great at everything. And I think it's smart. Knowing where you add value and where you don't is critical. I would be the worst lawyer in the world because I didn't go to law school, so I'm not going to go in and pretend like I know what I'm doing. So it's all about like, it's just experience and trial and error. And you don't want to be making those mistakes when you don't have to, as long as the person that you're working with, you trust them. And again, like they're affordable. You don't want to pay a bunch of money and not get anything back,
Yeah.
And the only advice I guess I would give when people are looking into working with either a marketing agency or a marketing partner or something like that, because there's a lot of just like shady tactics out there. Just know exactly what you're buying and ask for reviews, right? Look at who they've worked with in the past. Get some referrals. Don't just believe somebody because they're charming. Or else you're just going to waste a ton of money. The other thing that I would also advise is whatever you do, unless you have like deep marketing experience, do not do Google AdWords on your own, right? It's a really, really complicated tool. Really, you have to have like complex data and strategies. And if you don't have that, I can almost guarantee you that you're going to be wasting your money, like literally throwing your money down the toilet. It works for some people if you have the experience and if you're good at it. But if not, if you're going to go that route of marketing, just hire somebody to do it that has done it and has done it for law firms, right? Not for plumbers, not for electricians, for law firms, because the law game is one of the hardest ones. It's one of the most expensive ones. But if you do it right, if you crack that nut, then it'll work for you.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, if people are interested in learning a little bit more about, the company, working with you guys, like how you guys work, where should they look for you online?
Yep. Our website, which we're in the middle of redoing actually, so it's super old. It's ConvertITMarketing.com. But we have a ton of information there where they can just look around, reach out to us. If somebody wants to reach out to me directly, they can email me at Zeke, Zeke, at ConvertITMarketing.com also. And yeah, that's probably a good place to start.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, Zeke, I want to say thank you for being an amazing guest. Thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure having you.
All right. Thanks for the invite, Terrell. Have a great day.
All right. If you're looking for ideas on how to manage and grow a profitable law firm, this Facebook group is perfect for you because every week we are featuring conversations with successful lawyers and businesses related to law firms on tips, ideas, and technology that are helping many people grow and manage a profitable law firm. So if you're looking for great tips and ideas, you definitely want to click the link below so you can join the conversation and be part of the Law Firms and Finance Facebook group.